Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with another fun beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to go check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and notification bell and you'll always know when we're posting new content. So today what I'm going to show you is a really fun vintage inspired bracelet that I thought would be particularly cool because it's going to highlight a lot of really great components that we have here. So from left to right, I'm going to go over those first. So we got some 2mm Swarovski pearls, which are brand new. They just started pumping out the 2mm, which we're super excited about. And then next I have a 3mm Swarovski pearl, and you may notice they are not the same white. I did that purposely. I wanted kind of a nice range of whites and creams. Next, I have a 4mm Swarovski pearl, and this one is in ivory. And the reason I picked ivory is because I think maybe it's one of the more overlooked colors, just because it's not an iridescent color, but it quite literally does look like ivory. And I think that it has a beautiful vintage quality about it, so I wanted to make sure that I highlighted it in this bracelet. And then last, my last two items here, one of them already attached to my fire line, a beautiful crystal encrusted button, and I'm absolutely loving these. They're super sparkly. We have some beautiful, very ornate designs, some that are a little bit more simple, but they're a lovely button and they're super affordable. They're just a few dollars, and they're an absolutely stunning button. This one kind of reminds me of a snowflake, so maybe this will be kind of a vintage winter look that we're going for. But I really just wanted to highlight how gorgeous this button is, and it just sort of worked within the theme of the bracelet. And then lastly, I have a 6mm crystal here, and this is a round crystal, and it's crystal bronze shade, and this is a beautiful custom coating, and again, it has, for me anyway, that beautiful kind of vintage feel to it. So as you can see, I have a range of sizes and textures, all within a similar color family, but that does change around a little bit. And then, you know, topped with this gorgeous button, I think it's going to make a really fun bracelet. So we're going to do this in a few different steps here. It's going to be a layered bracelet. So in between layers, I won't have you guys watch me just do stringing. So we'll take some pauses as we go. And yeah, so let's get started. So I have 6-pound fire line here, and I have maybe a wingspan and a half or so. I want to have enough that I can just go back and forth. Get that threaded onto a size 12 needle, and you could go with a size 10 needle, but really you're gonna be better off sticking with a size 12 needle because of the teeny 2mm pearls. But if you weren't using 2mm pearls, you could certainly go with a thicker needle. And I'm just gonna pull a little bit of a tail so the whole thing feels a little shorter. And we're gonna start our first strand by just having the fire line attached to the button with a square knot. And this is not what will be the only thing that holds our fire line to the button. This is just to get it started. So you're gonna do a square knot, right over left, left over right, pull it down. It's kind of like a double knot, but the second knot's backwards. It's a lot stronger. Leave a tail that's long enough that you could stick a needle on it later and weave it through and secure it with some half hitch knots. And the first bead that we're gonna put on is going to be one of our 3mm pearls. And this is just because my first strand is going to be with the 2mm pearls, but I want a bead here that's slightly larger because we're going to have to go back through this a few times every time we get back to this side, and so the hole is going to be a little bit bigger on the 3mm pearl over the 2mm pearl. Now, the best way to take beads off of a strand like this is to keep them on the string. I hope you don't get your beads that are on strings and immediately pull them off and put them in baggies. You could really be doing yourself a disservice there. So what I like to do is keep them on the strands, because if you pinch a section in between your fingertips and then slide the string out, you can then very easily slide your needle right through and pick up most, if not all, of your beads very easily. Another reason why checksy beads that come on hanks are so much fun for that reason. So we're going to slide these down, and this is what's going to start my first strand here. So this first strand will be with the 2mm pearls, and each strand that I do, whether it's with a 3mm pearl, the 4mm pearl, the crystals, they're all going to start and end with a little section of 2mm pearls, even if the rest of the strand is not 2mm pearls. And this way, the whole bracelet will taper down nicely at the clasp and look a little cleaner. So what I'm going to do is keep stringing up these 2mm pearls, and I'll meet you back here in just a minute. Okay, so I have my length of 2mm pearls strung up, and what I also strung up was some 3mm pearls at the end, and these are what are going to create our loop here that our button will go through. Now, it may take a little trial and error to figure out the exact number you need depending on the button you're using. If you do want to use this same exact button, and we'll link you below to all of these products, so if you want to use the same exact button, I did put on 17 of our 3mm Swarovski pearls here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back down through the first of those 3mm pearls. I'll give you a nice close-up of this as well. So you can see that, and we just tighten it up. And this loop will get reinforced each time we get back down to this side, just like down at the clasp will get reinforced as well when we get back down to that side. So now we're ready to start our next strand. And if you remember what I said, all the strands, even if it's not a strand of 2mm pearls, is going to start off with a little section of 2mm pearls. I'm going to pick up about 3 of them. Okay, and now this strand, I am just going to do a strand with the 3mm pearls to get those incorporated. So that's, again, that's the same size here that is in our beaded loop. And just like the 2mm pearls, if you have them still on the string, that is the easiest way to go, because you just pinch them in between your fingertips and then stick your needle through, just like that. So you can see that if we start each of those strands with a little grouping of the 2mm, it does taper it down nicely. Not only is this going to look nice and finished, it's going to allow the beads just to not get too bulky. The bulkier it gets there, the more you're going to chance seeing some of that fire line exposed, and we don't want that. So I will see you back here in a minute once I have those added on. Okay, so I have my strand of 3mm strung on here, and I did finish it off with a few of the 2mm pearls as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back up through the 3mm pearl that's right at the very end here. That's why we wanted one to have a little bit of a bigger hole. So I'll go through that pearl, and then we're going to go through the loop of the clasp, and then back down that same 3mm pearl. It'd be a little tricky to get in there. Just really dig your needle in there and you'll get it. There we go. And then if your newest strands start to loosen up a little bit, that's okay. Once you pull this all tight, that'll be fine. Okay. Get this focused for you. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to do our next strand, and I'm going to do the 4mm ivory pearls. And again, just like before, you can leave them right on the strand if you'd like and take them off that way. And I'm going to start off with the 3 2mm pearls, because again, we want to keep that nice taper so things stay neat and clean down here at the side. And you can stray from this as much as you want. You can do the same sort of beginning and ending techniques and have whatever you want strung in the middle. This is just sort of the look I'm going for, but you can certainly switch it up, or you can mix the different bead sizes on the same strand. That would be gorgeous too, and that would give you a totally different look. So this is what it starts to look like with our next size on there. And I'll see you back in a minute after I get this part strung up. Okay, so as you can see, I have my strand of 4mm strung up, and I did end with those the 3 2mm pearls. And I'm gonna go up through that 3mm pearl up here that's at the bottom of our loop. That's gonna pull this all together, just like that. And now I'm gonna go up through the beaded loop here to reinforce it. because we want to make sure that after putting all this beautiful work into stringing up all of these beautiful beads that we know that it's not going to come apart. Especially important with something like a loop here, because that's where a lot of the stress of the bracelet's going to be as it gets taken on and off. Or because it's a loop, it could get caught on something, so you want to make sure that you have plenty of reinforcement inside. So now that I'm coming to the bottom of that loop, I'll head back down through that single bead that's at the bottom, like this. And then now I'm going to pick up our 3 2mm pearls, because again, that's how we're going to start all of our strands. And now is our gorgeous crystal strand. And now what I'm going to do to make these crystals flow and sit a little more nicely, is I'm going to put a 2mm pearl in between each one. Otherwise, I run the risk of these being a little bit stiff, depending on how tightly I string them up. And you do want them strung tightly. You don't want to have them loose enough where they can wiggle and expose that fire line inside, because then it's more easily able to catch on something. So we want to have them nice and tight, but keep that fluidity. So we will have some 2mm pearls, yet another beautiful use for these, our little 2mm pearls in between each one. So I started with those 3 2mm beads, so I can just head right on into a crystal now. And they will just go on one at a time, and I'll string a few on before we take a break again, so you can get an idea of what they're going to look like. It's always very important to me that the jewelry I make doesn't feel stiff. I need it to be comfortable, because it's not enough for it to look beautiful. I want it to feel comfortable too. So this is what we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and get those strung up, and I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, so I have my 4th strand strung up, which are the 6mm crystal bronze shade crystals, and they have such a nice feel to them because of those beautiful 2mm pearls, which I love. They really do make such a great spacer. Even if it's not the pearl that you're looking to show off in the project, to utilize them in this manner is a really fantastic design technique. So I ended with my 3 2mm pearls. I'm going to go back up through that 3mm pearl at the top there. I'm going to go through the loop of my clasp. I'm going to go back down that pearl now. And with this strand, with the crystal strand, I'm going to go back down it because I want to reinforce that crystal strand. Number one, it's going to be the heaviest strand, but also because crystals tend to have a little bit of a sharper edge on them. So I want to make sure, as always, that things are nice and reinforced. So I can just head down all those beads. Might be a little tricky to get in there at first because things are getting a little bulky up at the top, but much less bulky because we have all of those 2mm that are tapering it down nicely as much as we can. So now I'm just going to head down that whole strand, and I'll see you back in a second. Okay, so I went ahead and went up my crystal strand. I went back up into this loop to reinforce it, and now I'm back down my crystal strand again. Again, this one strand will end up having 3 lines of fire line through it for added strength. And I'm just going to start to make some half hitch knots to start to secure these threads, because we are almost done. There's one more cool little trick I'm going to show you, which will be your reward for sticking till the end. Let's see. Okay, there we go. And if you don't know how to make a half hitch knot, it's really easy. All you do is take your needle, go underneath the thread path that is going through the beads that you're currently in. So right now I'm going behind the fire line that's going through these beads. And when you pull almost all the way through, you'll see you get a loop like that. And then you just go through the loop and carefully close that knot down right where you started it. If you're not careful, sometimes it can hop over a bead and then you'll see thread on the outside, but luckily, as long as you're not using really light colored beads, you should be able to catch it before you keep going and then fix it while you're in that same exact spot. So now I'd already made some half hitch knots previously before turning the camera back on. So I'm gonna go ahead now and snip my thread off here. Now the tail I will worry about a little later, but the last thing I wanted to show you guys, first of all, it's just such a lovely, really pretty, beautiful bracelet. Your button should go right through, not super easily, but easily enough where it's not putting stress on the loop. And that to me is just such a beautiful, beautiful look to the bracelet. But the last thing I'm going to show you how to do is a really fun little trick to sort of intertwine strands together. The more strands you have, the better it looks. So if you make a much more layered bracelet, you can really have some fun with doing this. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to start to take your strands and just start sort of weaving them in and out of each other like this. No rhyme or reason to it. I'm just sort of having some fun weaving my strands into one another. And then the way that you're going to keep that from undoing itself is just take one of your ends here and just stick it in here and pop it through. And that will keep them woven together. You can always undo this if you can figure out where you had popped it through. You just pop it back out and then you can redo it more. The more that you intertwine them together before popping one end through, the more intertwined they will look. Keep in mind, if you know you want to do this, it may shorten your bracelet slightly because things start to get a little bulky, so it will feel a little tighter when you're wearing it. This is a neat little trick if you have a multiple strand bracelet that is a little too big. You can do something like this and it will tighten it up a little bit on you. So if you know that you want to do something like this, make sure that you bead these strands just a smidgen longer, maybe another 1/4 inch longer than what you normally would, because you will probably lose that 1/4 inch in there. So I'm actually going to do this a little bit more. So I'll weave a little bit more through. I'll get this side going here. Look at that. A beautiful little braided look. It's not really a braid, but it sort of gives you the look of a braid, which is why it's wonderful. And you don't have to worry about braiding the strands when they're open. You can just do it after, which I think adds a beautiful, beautiful layered look to this bracelet. So that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed watching. Make sure to visit us on over at EurekaCrystalBeads.com for all the materials used in this video. And again, we will link them to you below in case you want these exact colors and exact sizes and exact button. And hopefully we will see you soon. Bye.